Mm-hmm. That doesn't. Okay. Good morning. Welcome to United Unitarian Universalist Congregation. My name is Patti Kies, and I'm the worship facilitator for today's service. Our musician today is Alex Chilson. Childcare is available during the service, although we've encouraged them to come on in. We are glad to have Selena Fox, Reverend Selena Fox from Circle Sanctuary as our guest speaker. A long-time Wisconsin-based nature spirituality practitioner who will tell you more about herself when she comes up to the microphone. It's great to see everyone today. We're extending a special welcome to visitors and guests, hoping that all of you will join us after the service for coffee and conversation, which will be in our lower fellowship hall inside. The announcement that I know of is that during that coffee and conversation time, you should see Paula. Paula, wave your hand. To sign cards for Reverend David's son Michael's wedding to Kenesha. So there will be an addition to his family coming next Saturday. And that is the only announcement I know of, other than that you should watch email, because that's where the majority of them come. And thank you, Alyssa, for keeping us all aware of all the happenings. Okay. Our call to worship is actually going to be Reverend Fox's call to worship. So.
It's great to be with all of you, and I will say again, because I joined you online for the Flower Communion ceremony, I'm a member of the Wisconsin Faith Voices for Justice, among other things, and we sponsor sacred site events. It is great to be with all of you in person. We celebrate the circle of nature. We celebrate the sacred earth, soil, rocks, sand, and land. We celebrate the sacred air, wind, atmosphere, and air that we breathe. We celebrate the sacred fire, sun, flames, energy, and other energy forms that sustain life. We celebrate the sacred waters, rain, fog, springs, rivers, lakes, oceans, and other waters. We celebrate the biosphere, planet Earth, our home. We celebrate the cosmos, the greater universe of which we are part. We celebrate the rhythms of nature and circle of seasons. We celebrate the great interconnecting spirit that is within us and around us. So be it. Circle of light, circle of sound, circle of seasons, circle around, circle of light, circle of sound, circle of seasons, circle around, circle of light, circle of sound, circle of seasons, circle around, circle of light, circle of sound, circle of seasons, circle around.
Each Sunday, Each Sunday, we light our flaming chalice, a symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. Please join me in saying the words here on the wall.
Kindle within us the warmth of passion, the glow of love, the light of commitment,
And the light of truth.
Here together, we scatter and nurture seeds of spirit, service, and community.
Sing our hymn, which is number 51, not necessarily a fully familiar hymn to us, so if you'll give us just a little to get the tune.
Lady of the season's laughter, in the summer's warmth be near. When the winter follows after, teach our spirits not to fear. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning year. Sister of the evening starlight, in the falling shadows stay, here among us till the far light of tomorrow's dawning ray. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning day. Mother of the generations, in whose love all life is worth, everlasting celebrations bring our labors safe to birth. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning earth. Goddess of all time's progression, stand with us when we engage, hands and hearts to end oppression, writing history's fairer page. Hold us in your steady mercy, Lady of the turning age.
So, our story for all ages today is called Apple Cake. And that circle looks a lot like the other circles that have been up ahead of you. As does that circle with the star within it. I wish I had all of the ingredients because there's a recipe in the back of this book. Thank you, hedge. Thank you, tree. Thank you, flower. Thank you, bee. Thank you, rain. Thank you, sun. Thank you, farmers, every one. Thank you, cows. Thank you, hen. Thank you, family. Thank you, friends. Thank you, earth beneath our feet. Thank you for the food we eat. Hedge and tree, flower, bee, cows and hens, family, friends, earth and water, fire and air. Thank you for the gifts we share. Thank you for the food we make. Thank you all for apple cake. Now, I didn't mention that the author is Dawn Casey, and of course, because we're recording, we want that up there. And the illustrationist is Genevieve Goodbout. And there's a great deal online about both of them. And that's this whole story. We're now going to have a guided meditation, and I'm going to give the microphone back to Reverend Fox.
I invite you, wherever you are, here in person, those of you online, and through the wonders of cyber technology, those who will be joining us later. Take a few moments now and let yourself be comfortable in the place where you are sitting. Just let your body get into a comfortable space for a short inner journey. You can relate to it as a meditation if that is part of your own spiritual framework, or if you prefer it to be a psychological, therapeutic imagination exercise. I invite you to use that framework. As you settle in, I invite you to lower your gaze or to close your eyes and take some deep, slow breaths. And silently honor this community. And the honoring of this community, let us also connect with community across time, going back into the earliest beginnings of 1877 in Mukwonago, Wisconsin. Spend a few moments in the here and now, experiencing yourself in a sacred circle, and in times to come. And here in this sacred place, let us honor the ancient ones that have dwelt here before this was settled by Europeans. And let us connect with the great circle of life, of which we all are part. And now I invite you to imagine a great oak tree in the summertime, rooted deeply and strongly in the earth, drawing up sustenance from the land, with branches going to the sky and leaves, green oak leaves, flourishing. Spend a few moments and celebrate this image of sacred oak in the high point of summer. And now imagine green acorns forming in the branches. And we journey now around the wheel of the year, imagining this oak moving into the autumn time. The green acorns are now brown, and some of them are falling to the ground as the leaves start changing colors. Reds and browns and gold. And we go around the wheel again, and leaves are falling, and leaves are brown. The acorns have gone on the ground. Many of the leaves have already fallen to the ground. It is late October, early November. And we continue our journey through the seasons to winter time. Snow on the tree and on the ground. The beauty of the oak as winter comes on. Turning the wheel again, we experience the tree and snow starting to melt off. Moving again around the wheel to spring, where buds of new leaves are forming on the tree. Moving to late April, beginning of May, pollen as the leaves start unfolding, the pollen time. Going around the wheel to the next seasonal festival time, the beginning of summer. Leaves out and beautiful, and now returning to the high point of summer with the hint of autumn starting to come as we notice those green acorns forming. Take a few moments now and imagine yourself in the center of a great wheel marked in 8 points, the beginnings of each of the 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter, and the midpoints of each season. Experience yourself in the center of that wheel, and in a way that works for you, invite Source, the divine, as one, many, according to your own framework, to align with you and to give you comfort and strength in the turning of the wheel the rhythms of nature, the divine dance of the seasons of which we are all part. We give thanks to the oak and to community across time. We give thanks to the seasons. And as we go through our time together today, let us take comfort in that love that connects us with each other and the greater circle of nature of which we are all part. So be it. Aho, Amen, Namaste, Ashe, Salam, Shalom, blessed be.
I have two poems to share with you. They're both from Mary Oliver's book, A Thousand Mornings. First one is called Foolishness. No, it's not. Sometimes I spend all day trying to count the leaves on a single tree. To do this, I have to climb branch by branch and write down the numbers in a little book. So I suppose, from their point of view, it's reasonable that my friends say, "What foolishness! She's got her head in the clouds again." But it's not. Of course, I have to give up. But by then, I'm half crazy with the wonder of it, the abundance of the leaves, the quietness of the branches, the hopelessness of my effort. And I am in that delicious and important place, roaring with laughter, full of earth praise. The second one is called The Moth, the Mountains, the Rivers. Who can guess the luna's sadness who lives so briefly? Who can guess the impatience of stone longing to be ground down, to be part again of something livelier? Who can imagine in what heaviness the rivers remember their original clarity? Strange questions, yet I have spent worthwhile time with them. And I suggest them to you also, that your spirit grow in curiosity, that your life be richer than it is, that you bow to the earth as you feel how it actually is, that we, so clever and ambitious and selfish and unrestrained, are only one design of the moving, the vivacious many. Thank you. Thank you for the guided meditation, and thank you for the musical meditation. In addition to our gifts each week, we build a sense of our community by sharing milestones in our individual lives, joys and sorrows that make us who we are. If you have something to share, you will please come forward to this microphone. Tell us your name and what's on your mind. Take a stone from the bowl, and as you do, when you are finished, place the stone in the bowl with the water and let the ripples carry your concerns out to the wider community.
I know Patti announced it already. My name is Meg. Sorry. I know Patti announced it already, but I would like to place a stone for Michael and Quenisha and David and Mary and their family as they enter this new phase of their lives.
Speaking of new phases of our lives, we signed, well, because I had to co-sign, an apartment lease for Nathan. Yes! So we're supposed to have a, empty nest feeling, but no, we kind of have a celebration feeling. And it's a work in progress. We will be very supportive of him and wish us luck.
Susan and I bid on Mike DeWicky's auction item of sailing on Lake Michigan, and we went yesterday with a group of other members, and we really had a fun time. We had front row seats to the air show because it was buzzing right above our heads, including the Blue Angels, which was really spectacular. So we had a great time. We did have one casualty. Jeff Blankenmeyer lost his hat.
So I will come down and place one last stone for the joys and sorrows that are unspoken but are on our hearts and minds. And we'll carry all of these into the days ahead and then sing our response.
Walking with you is our prayer.
Each week in our church, we take up an offering, a good way to remind ourselves of the symbolic at the same time as the practical. Through pledges, we build our budget and fund our programs, pay our staff, finance the comfort and beauty of our building. We know we could easily submit pledge checks to the church at any convenient time, but we pass the plate during worship to make a community expression of thanks for the blessings of abundance. Our offering says this act of giving is as essential to our spiritual well-being as anything else that we do here on a Sunday morning. testing Aaron this morning by switching microphones. But if I stand in front of that, it's too hard for you. So I'll take the regular type, you'll take the italics, and we'll shout for joy. You make the outgoings of the morning and of the evening shout for joy. The great river swells with water, filling the ridges, blessing the growth of grain.
You crown the year with your abundance.
The pastures are perfumed with dew.
The hills deck themselves with joy.
The meadows adorn themselves with flocks.
The valleys grow themselves with grain.
They shout for joy.
They shout.
So we shout for joy. Reverend Fox is going to share her celebration of the seasons.
Make peace on earth, make peace within, at the sun's rebirth, and round the wheel again. Celebrating the seasons, the wheel of the year. My name is Lena Fox. I'm senior minister at Circle Sanctuary, which is located at Circle Sanctuary Nature Preserve near Barneveld, Wisconsin, USA. I have been celebrating the seasons since I was very young. I grew up as a Southern Baptist, and it turned out not to be such a good fit for me as I moved into adulthood and got active with social change. And I continue to be an activist for equality, liberty, and justice for all. And as part of my work, I not only facilitate seasonal celebrations as part of the Circle Sanctuary community in person and online, but over the years, I have been a guest speaker at a variety of UU congregations and communities across the USA, and I'm so glad to be with all of you today. I'd like to read a short passage from Pagan and Earth-Centered Voices in Unitarian Universalism. And this actually is from a chapter that I contributed to this anthology. Celebrating a seasonal festival every 6 to 7 weeks strengthens pagans' awareness and spiritual connection to the greater circle of nature. Making time at regular intervals for these sacred practices is a wonderful approach and opportunity to shift from a human-centric consciousness to an eco-centric consciousness, attuning to changes in daylight and darkness, and to changes in vegetation, animal life, and ecosystems in the local area. Celebrating the seasons helps pagan experience their selfhood as part of the larger realm of nature. Furthermore, for UU pagans, celebrating the Sabbats, as we sometimes call them, is a powerful way to experience both the seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part, and the sixth source, spiritual teachings of earth-centered traditions which celebrate the sacred circle of life and instruct us to live in harmony with the rhythms of nature. I'm going to share with you some traditions, old and new, connected with the Wheel of the Year, the circle of the seasons. Now, you may find that some of the things that I share are things that are part of popular culture and folkways that have been woven into contemporary life. For many of us, we celebrate our spiritual year at the end of October, beginning of November. Those of us who are involved in nature spirituality traditions, including Wiccan, pagan, Druidic, heathen, animistic, pantheistic, panentheistic, and my church is in the woods. Some people have created their own form of nature spirituality, and others belong to one or more of the traditions or denominations that are part of the rich tapestry of nature religion. At the end of October, we have the Celtic festival known as Samhain. Samhain. Some people might think it's Samhain, but it's actually Samhain. And some say it means summer's end. This is a time for honoring departed loved ones, honoring ancestors, and literally what's happening in nature. Death is happening with the vegetation, especially here in Wisconsin at that time. Now, most people know this seasonal celebration as Halloween. Wondering if I can get a show of hands. Who here celebrates Halloween? Well, I even celebrated that as a Southern Baptist, and I don't know how many are still doing that these days, but essentially it's become a multicultural, international folk holiday, not only for kids, but for people of all ages that want to have a bit of fun before the winter sets in the Northern Hemisphere. It's in late October, beginning of November. October 31st is the day that most people involved in nature spirituality in the Northern Hemisphere celebrate it. There's a related but separate holiday known as the Day of the Dead, which incorporates not only indigenous practices rooted in Mexico and related areas with Roman Catholicism. And that too has now kind of woven itself into the Halloween time. If you celebrate Samhain, this is a time where you can reflect on this cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Moving to the beginning of winter, on and near December 21st, we have Yule. Now, many people know this as winter solstice, and indeed, those who celebrate Christmas need to be aware that most of the Christmas customs actually are rooted in ancient pagan nature traditions. It's the return of the light. Days will, yes, we're going into the depths of winter, but days are starting to get longer once again. It is a time to focus on peace. An old tradition is charity, sharing food and other things with those less fortunate. Yes, those trees that many people have in their home, I call them Yule trees. Some people call them holiday trees, and some people call them Christmas trees. But that tradition of bringing greens into the home goes back to the most ancient of times. We have several old pagan cultures that have fueled our Christmas, solstice, and Yuletide celebrations. The ancient Romans called this Saturnalia, And it was a multi-day, multi-night celebration. Gifts were exchanged, and it was a time for many parties which have their contemporary form in the office holiday party. Now, with the pandemic going on, a lot of that has had to be by Zoom, but holiday parties abound. Wreaths on the door, garlands that people use to decorate churches and homes all have their roots in the ancient winter solstice celebrations of pagans long ago. In old Scotland, the celebration was known as the Hogmanay. Now, no one really knows where that word comes from, but I imagine when you all celebrate New Year's Eve, you're familiar with Auld Lang Syne. That's a Hogmanay song, and the Scots, who took on some Celtic influences as well as some Nordic ones because of the different cultures that were across time in Scotland, would have great fires, bonfires, and big parties. Part of what I call a time-release celebration of Yuletide. And the 12 days of Christmas, based on having multiple days and nights when people would be celebrating this custom. There is the Yule log, and the most contemporary form is to watch a virtual Yule log burn, sometimes with carols, and sometimes with different creatures, mostly cats and dogs. So at Yuletide, if you want a Yule log experience, what I like to do is actually burn an oak log, but you'll also find a variety of ways to celebrate that virtually. When we move to the beginning of February, we're in the midst of the winter season. And the name of that festival amongst the ancient Celts is Imbolc. Some know it as Bridget's Day for the divine feminine Bridget, who was turned into Saint Bridget as Christianity not only reached Ireland, but other parts of Europe. Most people know this holiday as Groundhog's Day. What do groundhogs have to do with the beginning of February? Well, it's looking at signs of spring. Indeed, the Celts saw right in the middle of winter the start of spring in their sacred year. And in Europe, it tended to be other animals, but in America, we've got groundhog observations in ceremonial times. It's sometimes known as the Festival of Lights, and people will kindle candles. And in the Middle Ages, when the time was Christianized, this was a time to bring candles to churches to have them blessed. And as we move through the winter now to the start of spring, spring equinox, also known as Ostara, named for the Germanic goddess of dawn and springtime. Some of the old traditions of working with eggs as spring comes on are continuing to be done these days, not only by contemporary pagans and others involving earth-centered traditions, but people of many backgrounds and faith traditions. In fact, that name Ostara has given the name to Easter. Easter, Ostara, Ostra. In fact, we get the word estrogen from her name. And this is a time to celebrate the coming of spring. And my own personal theory is the great celebration of Irish Heritage Day that some people call St. Patrick's Day, the wearing of the green, also is all tied in with the welcoming of spring. As we go to the middle of springtime, the late April, early May, we have the blossoming of nature. And it is Beltane, a time for celebrating nature's fertility. And maypoles. Can I get a show of hands? Anybody dance a maypole? I danced it in public school back in the 1950s. It was Virginia, after all, and it was settled by the English. And maypoles continue to be danced to this day, not only by pagans and Unitarian Universalists, but people from many different backgrounds. There was a time in the early 20th century that the maypole dancing and the other traditions that are rooted in this celebration were starting to disappear, but they've been having a grand revival. When Wisconsin celebrated its 150th birthday, I was there up at the Capitol in Madison and was delighted to see a maypole was there celebrating the English who were part of settling Wisconsin. So what's this about dancing a maypole? Actually, the Victorian era brought us the ribbons. Prior to that, people would gather around the pole and do ring dances. And there's a form of English folk dance known as Morris dancing, and that continues on to this day. It has updated itself with the times. It used to be men were donning bells and dressing in white and dancing in the spring and the fertility of the land. In Madison, there are the Oak Apple Morris dancers, and there are people who are women and men. We have a much more diverse celebration with that Morris team, and most Morris teams now have people of a variety of gender identities, all keeping alive the old folk tradition of bringing in the May. If you'd like a little bit of American history about Beltane, May Day, and yes, it's a workers' holiday and has been connected with celebrating workers in a variety of places, I invite you to look at Nathaniel Hawthorne's Twice Told Tales. Yes, there was the Marymount community back in colonial times that was up in New England, and they had a giant maypole. Well, the Puritans, who were neighbors, who really wanted to have their own religious freedom, were not embracing of diversity of this other group that was there. And yes, Thomas Morton, who was the founder of that community, ended up getting put in jail, and the locals tore down the maypole. Well, that happened actually in England as well, when there was the Puritan so-called revolt, where maypoles that were very much all across England were cut down. When Charles II got back in, many got put back up. So any of these customs that continue to be around today are continuing with a lot of different historical roots and connections. I actually think the maypole dancing is not only an old tradition, but it's a way of connecting ourselves with the earth and the sky and having a good time. Now, besides having English heritage, I'm an American patchwork quilt in terms of ancestral heritage. I'm also part Swedish, so as we go to the next turning of the wheel, the beginning of summer, which is also sometimes called midsummer, there are maypoles there too, but they're midsummer poles. And I'm wondering if anybody has Swedish heritage. And yes, there's a decoration of the poles with greenery, and it's actually a national holiday, midsummer, in Sweden and some other places in Scandinavia. This is a time to welcome in the summer and to celebrate the longest day of the year. Actually, the use of bonfires and all-night summer parties, which are part of our Fourth of July celebrations have some of their roots in the old midsummer traditions. Indeed, our nation, USA, came out and was born with the Declaration of Independence out of processes that happen at midsummer. Now, in the calendar of public holidays and popular holidays, yes, there's May Day, but we have Mother's Day, and flowers connected with Mother's Day actually are rooted in traditions of celebrating flowers, and there is an ancient Roman goddess, Maya, who gives her name to May, and another one, Flora, who were celebrated at that time of year. In June, we have Father's Day. So yes, for each of these holidays, we actually have some things going on in the larger society. And then, as we move from summer solstice to Lughnassad, or Lammas, which was another name it got, it was a time for celebrating the height of the summer and the beginning of the harvest, in particular, the grain harvest. And one of the wonderful things that continues to happen, people go outside and have games and lots of fun times. A lot of the Highland games that happen, not only in the USA, for those who are Scottish Americans, but in other parts of the world, in Scotland itself, those games happen around this time, late July, early August. And we're going into that time. Usually it's celebrated July 31st, sometimes August 1st or 2nd. Many contemporary pagans are celebrating the seasons not just on one day, but multiple days and nights. And that was the tradition long ago as well. And moving from the beginning of the harvest to fall equinox, the beginning of autumn. There is grand celebrations of abundance. Harvest time is happening, especially in rural areas, and this is the harvest Thanksgiving time. And moving back to Samhain, we have the last of the harvest, where the harvest needs to be in. So in sharing with you this Wheel of the Year, I invite you, as you go around the Wheel of the Year in your personal lives, in your households, in your communities, that as you move into Lughnassad at the end of this month, think of county fairs. They are a direct descendant of this old holiday. As you go into autumn equinox, Thanksgiving celebrations. Yes, in America, the official Thanksgiving is in November, not September. As you go into late October, Halloween, recognizing it's rooted in Samhain practices, going into winter solstice celebrations, Christmas time, and all the many holidays that happen then, recognizing it's interreligious, international, multicultural, moving to the beginning of February with Groundhog's Day, Imbolc, and to the start of spring, Ostara. Easter is a movable Christian holiday, but has some of its symmetry and symbology coming from the old pagan ways. Moving to the beginning of May, May Day, to the beginning of summer in June, and back to Lughnassad where we are now, recognizing there's ways these old traditions have been celebrated and that are continuing to be part of our life. So I invite you to get out at each of these holiday times, whether you embrace any of the folk traditions or not, and let that inspire you to strengthen your connection with nature in your own local area. And for many of us in the pandemic, we've been on our screens, so I would say let go of your screens and go into the green and really enjoy the summertime. I'd like to share with you a closing song. It's one I wrote as a Thanksgiving song. We give thanks for the harvest. We give thanks for abundance. We give thanks for the blessings in our lives through the years. And the sound goes like this. The tune goes like this. We give thanks for the harvest. We give thanks for abundance. We give thanks for the blessings in our lives through the year. We give thanks for the harvest. We give thanks for abundance. We give thanks for the blessings in our lives through the year. We give thanks for the harvest. We give thanks for abundance. We give thanks for the blessings in our lives through the year. Bright blessings. And I close with this singing bowl that literally has gone around the world with me.
Sowing in the morning, sowing seeds of kindness, sowing in the noontide and the dewy eve, waiting for the harvest and the time of reaping. We shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves. We shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves. We shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves, sowing in the sunshine, sowing in the shadows, fearing neither clouds nor winter's chilling breeze. By and by the harvest and the labor ended, we shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves. We shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves, bringing in the sheaves. We shall come rejoicing, bringing in the sheaves.
I got wrapped up in it. I don't even know if the closing